the most fundamental thing is, firstly, I love people. But one big factor is my own history of displacement within my own life. If you look at my CV, it can sort of illusionally look quite glamorous. I started from Hong Kong, lived in Australia, and then West Berlin before settling in the UK. But the fact is that I did not have the right to stay anywhere except the UK. And I have the right to stay in the UK because at that time, it was still possible because I was born British in Hong Kong. I therefore identify with the experience of the people we call Black and ethnic minorities in the UK because we share this kind of experience of displacement. Working on issues of diversity and equality in the environmental sector is very close to my heart. A very positive aspect of connecting with nature is that one can come into contact with very beautiful places and wildlife, and this can make a difference to members of diverse communities that very often have very hard lives. In this context, besides making a contribution to the environment, there's also a lot of benefit to people's lives. Which groups are least represented? In the UK, it is Black and ethnic minorities, particularly the Black communities who are the most visible. And because they're the most visible, they tend to suffer most from discrimination and racism. For everyone, there's the challenge to recognize the continuing legacy of colonial history, exclusion, discrimination, and exploitation on the basis of race. But there are many, many different factors. Although we've come quite a long way, I must say, in the UK. If I look back 20 years, the UK was much worse 20 years ago. So we're doing lots. We've arrived now at a stage where when Black Lives Matter point to structure, we're ready to move into that next stage of representation. Because representation makes a big difference. It's about decision making. And when you say, have I had any experience where lack of diversity became a real challenge? Well, one of these challenges is who owns the power? You see, if you're racist and had no power, you actually can't do very much to people you hate. But when racism is combined with power, wow, that is really something, because you control the lives of people, you control the resources and so on. So some of the challenges I faced when I first started to work with Black Environment Network was when within organizations or departments or government and so on, no leadership at the top. Leadership at the top is really powerful because they can say which policies will be put into action, whether there's going to be any resources to do anything and so on. Because very often, there's a lot of policies on paper. They're everywhere. They sound really good. But when you don't have that leadership to put them into action, you really don't get anywhere. And that kind of commitment is important because, when there's leadership, it casts an atmosphere over society. And as you can see, there are actually lots of laws that's supposed to prevent racism and so on. But again, without an atmosphere cast from the top, people still don't get the benefits of the law because there's no enforcement. Then it's like the killing of George Floyd. There's a law that says you can't kill somebody. But if the police actually ignore these things and do things which are actually against best practices, and they're tolerated because there's no leadership to cast that essential atmosphere that certain things should never happen, then that makes things very, very difficult. I think that is the greatest challenge, I think. Highlight these people, give them space, give these voices space. Because, for example, recently there's been a brilliant project by an organization called the Dog Society. And they decided that what is happening now is there's a very out of date image of multicultural participation in the country, in the UK. What is happening is people say, because we don't know any of them, there must be no Black and ethnic minority activists, which is not true. So the Dog Society actually created a database. They researched 100 Black and ethnic minority activists. They put them into a database of all the details, and they asked them to make all their emails public, so that whenever any mainstream organization want to find a Black and ethnic minority voice, one of the things you can do is go to the database and you can contact them. And this creates an atmosphere in which more voices can be found and heard. And I think that this database actually should be continuously expanded. This expansion shows the work that is being done by diverse voices. And when they can be found and can be given the platform in many, many different ways, it changes the whole atmosphere. The voices are heard, the reality of the existence of Black and ethnic minority voices is recognized, and I think this can go a long way to addressing the problem. Wonderful opportunity has been opened up because of COVID and the use of Zoom. Before this, people had difficulties getting together. You couldn't have networks linking right across the world or across the country. Now you can. And there were so many conferences that used to, you have to pay for it, you have to attend it, you have to travel, you have to spend all that time doing that. Nowadays, you just switch it on. And so many conferences have become free that people have become very conscious of this. And conferences that used to have 100 people now have 500. Some conferences have thousands now. It is really exciting. And then voices can get heard without any expenses. Issues can get discussed more between people. So I think that even though we do hanker after being in front of each other now and then and so on, but I think that many people recognize that even if we go back to the valuing of face-to-face work and so on, that the technological dimension will remain because there's so many advantages. It can really expand our influence and our connections and so on. I'd like to see written into the plan a commitment to equal opportunity for diverse and disadvantaged communities of all kinds to have their share of the cake for the coming new green jobs, underpinned with a program of promotion, information, and training to enable them to take up these jobs. And the Prime Minister should have a T-shirt saying it.